Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff. I believe this is episode 20, but don't quote me on that because I've not been counting. So, this is pretty big news. This was not expected at all, and I've been so surprised to hear about this. It was completely took me by surprise. I'd given up hope, basically. And if you haven't heard it yet, then here it is. Gerard Batten is going to stand for leadership of UKIP once more. He previously said he wasn't going to stand if he lost his seat, and he'd pretty much said, he's standing down. That was it. He was, the leaders had already been announced, the new people running for leadership, and just the other day, well, yesterday, he came out now saying that he's going to run for leadership. Now, I believe I would have to guess that the reason this happened is because we all had to send an email giving our assent for a leader. So we have to say, I assent to Richard Brain or Ben Walker for the leadership candidacy. And they had to get 20 ascensions. And I think, but I don't have proof, that a lot of UKIP members assented for Gerard Batten despite his not standing for leadership. Which is why he now says, because of overwhelming support from UKIP members, I decided to stand in the leadership contest. My platform will include, and then he goes on to say his platform. So yeah, that's pretty crazy news. It's really thrown everyone for a loop. But then just last night, the interim leader for UKIP, Piers Waltrip, I believe, might be pronouncing that wrong, he basically announced who the leaders were. And so, we ended up with the following. So we've got Gerard Batten, Gareth Bennett, Mike Hookham, Ben Walker, and Helena Windsor. Which means that Freddie Vacher, Richard Brain, and Ernie Warrender have stepped down. Now, from what I know, Richard Brain has stepped down to give way to Batten, to pull his support for Batten, whereas Freddie Vacher and Ernie Warrender have stepped down to give their support to Ben Walker. So, yeah, this is an interesting turnout then. So, everyone's kind of discussing, so what's going to happen now? I've been giving the news to various members, and everyone's just like, what? Where does this come from? So it looks like it's going to end up being Batten and Walker, if I'm being honest, because in all the polling, I know polling doesn't say much, but in all the polling, Walker and Batten come ahead. Most people aren't familiar with Helena Windsor, and quite a few people are not happy with Mike Hookham, and a few people aren't also not aware of Gareth Bennett. I mean, at least I'm not. But Batten is obviously, as the previous leader, has a lot of people know him. He's got a lot of supporters. He's got a lot of people who are not happy. They do not want to see him run again because they feel like he's the reason everything went so badly in the previous election. Now, I personally don't think it was his fault, but the outcome's been interesting. But the reason Ben Walker is doing so well is because he's pretty much got a fully fledged campaign. Right after the leadership was announced, they were going to be choosing new leaders, he started on his campaign quite quickly. He's the first person I heard around about pretty much announcing his candidacy. And so what it really comes down to is then, what are Ben Walker and Batten, the two I'm going to focus on, what are they all about? So you've got Ben Walker, who came out with, pretty early on, his Go Grassroots campaign. So it says here, I believe in building from the bottom up, but that has to start with our branches. My Go Grassroots manifesto has been written by branch officers for branches and members. And then it goes on to link to that. So, he's come up with an interesting plan, and, I think it's a good place for us to be focusing on. I've had a similar idea about changing the focus of UKIP. Whereas Batten has kind of taken a different route there. He's stuck with the he said here, no backtracking. So I'll just go through these: national democracy, economic democracy, political democracy, freedom of speech, no backtracking or surrender to political correctness. Now that does sound very similar to his existing platform, which has worked to a degree. I do fully stand with Batten on sticking to our guns. Just sticking to what we believe in, and not backing down. And but this is a very vague um, policy. Obviously, it's just sort of his platform. It's not nothing, no specific manifesto. So I'm not so sure whether Batten planned this out. He's always shown himself to be a kind of guy who thinks ahead and like plans things out. So I don't think he planned on standing again. So because he would have saved everyone a lot of trouble if he just said he was going to stand again. So I don't think he had planned on it. I think something must have changed. Now, this really leaves us in a position now. It does look like Batten and Walker are the two main runners to go on. Maybe I'll do a video breaking down the current candidates and just breaking down what they will be, what their policies are. So I might just do a video on that, but we'll see. But what it looks like is, it looks like I like personally where Ben Walker is coming from. I was quite happy to kind of support what he was going for, but I didn't really feel like he was the right guy for the job. Just my first impressions of him weren't great. Batten, I think, has proven himself to be a steadfast guy. I think he made a few mistakes, but I believe that the mistakes he can learn from, especially since a lot of his mistakes, in my opinion, were not his fault. I don't think he was at fault for them. So, there's not much to be changed. If he his main mistake, really, in my opinion, was trusting the wrong people, and I think I if he doesn't make the mistake again, I think Batten will be an amazing leader. Ben Walker, I don't know if he'll be an amazing leader because I don't really know his background and like he's posted his credentials and stuff, but I don't know what that means. Doesn't mean much. Everyone's kind of got credentials. It just doesn't mean whether they'll stand under fire. And I've never really seen Ben Walker do anything public. He's never taken the pressure of the press, whereas Batten has. And we've seen Hookham take the pressure of the press, and he didn't stand up well. And personally, I think I'm looking most forward to seeing. I would be hoping to see Batten and Brain working together, which might happen if Brain has shown his support for Batten. It would be good because Brain is actually, I believe, a developer, so he's got quite a few interesting ideas with the online side of UKIP and improving it there. And he also has a bit of a grassroots branches approach, which is why I'm not so keen. I'm not so sure Ben Walker's the way to go because he's not the only guy who's come up with this idea of going to the grassroots. I was coming up with my own little plan for that before the end of the local elections, so quite a while back. And so, I don't think Walker's the first guy to come up with the idea. The real question is whether or not Ben Walker's plan, his specific implementation plan, will be the best workable plan. If that's the case, then I better stand down with my own plan because I've got my own ideas around that. But I think that I'd like to see Batten as a leader because Batten as a leader, as the UKIP leader, his role doesn't really include running the branches. It's not the role of the leader to do that. So, I don't think that if you're looking for the branches to be grown, I don't think the leader is the guy who needs to be picked for that. But we'll see how it goes. So yeah, I'll do a video. But honestly, I'm just so taken aback by this announcement, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here because it's going to be quite an interesting turnout. So yeah, hopefully we'll go carry on seeing where that goes. I'll try and make a video, put together a list of all the policies and manifestos and what each leader is for. And we'll be having a few events coming up for UKIP, just breaking down. They'll be doing debates and such. And I think that's where we will see how well these candidates stand up to the fire and the flames. And I hope that Batten has learned from some of the mistakes he's made because he's shown his ability to stand under fire. And I think he just needs to make sure that the people standing there with him can do the same. Anyway, so till the next episode. I hope that I'm not the only one who's very interested in all this stuff that's going on. But we'll see what happens. All right then.